Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, and in this video I'm talking about a critical question a lot of people are asking me from all over the country. In fact, this is a question that people across the world are dealing with right now. Should I go back to an offline program? Should I join an offline program or offline course for coaching in CAT specifically, or should I continue with an online course for this year if I'm going for CAT 22? So I'm going to specifically consider this question. Of course, the pointers I'm going to talk about are relevant for any other exam also. So you can listen to this if you're preparing for any other competitive exam also. So of course, first things first, the main trigger for why this has happened is because COVID is now receding into our rear view mirrors, so to say. I mean, it's been a bad 2 years that the world has faced, and we have reached a point now where medical science has improved. Vaccines have started becoming effective in terms of preventing serious disease, and we're no longer so fearful as we were at the start of the disease. Perhaps the fear was justified at that time, but going forward, we are obviously more comfortable sitting in a closed room with strangers going forward, and hence the possibility of an offline coaching program or joining an offline coaching program is back now. In that sense, and there are broadly three imperatives that people tell me when I ask them that an offline program versus an online program. Pehla to you guys have heard this, I have heard this, we have said it also. Online Zoom meetings se tang aa gaya, right? I've got bored and I've got totally disoriented and completely depressed attending online meetings. That's number one. Number two is the myth that online learning is not effective. I'll tell you why I'm talking about that as a myth. And the third one is of course that people are advising me that offline the learning is much better. I believe I'm well qualified to talk about this because I've taught batches offline for 25 years in my life. I started teaching people from 1995 onwards, and the last 25 years I've taught maybe lakhs of students, if not millions, over batches which have been as small as 10-15 people to as large as 500 people in a classroom. And of course, I've taken offline workshops, seminars with 1,000+ people also. At the same time, my experience in online teaching and online training has been almost a decade and a half long, because at Mindworks we kind of were the pioneers in online classes. 2008 was when we first launched our online batch, when nobody was thinking about online classes at that time. So I think I'm pretty qualified to talk about this key aspect, and it's coming, and my thoughts are coming from that experience essentially. 2.5 decades of offline teaching, 1.5 decades of online teaching. Any longer bear sitting in an online meeting or online Zoom webinar, whatever you call it, I find it very difficult to sit inside it. Now, if a 10-year-old student is telling me that, I would accept that logic. If a 12-year, 14, 15-year-old student is no longer a child any longer, 20, 22-year-old young adult who is going to be in the workforce in 2 years' time, hopefully earning a package of upwards of 20 lakh rupees per annum. If that guy is telling me that I'm fed up of online meetings and I can't do much, or I can't concentrate in online meetings, etc., then that's something that I simply cannot accept. And not just cannot accept, if it's actually true from that person's side that he is not able to actually concentrate in online meetings and is very distracted, then it's a major serious personality flaw which he or she will need to rectify in the next 2 years before he or she enters the corporate ladder, if he or she hopes that they want to reach the top of the corporate ladder or top of the professional ladder in whatever profession you choose. A distracted person, a person who cannot focus for a couple of hours, for an hour, for half an hour, for 45 minutes during his learning experiences, is unlikely to be able to focus during his work experiences. So this is something that you will have to bite that bullet, because in my view, online classes and online learning provides you a few great opportunities which offline simply does not. A CAT aspirant, if I'm talking about a aspirant for CAT 22, starting in May-June 2022 till November 2022, you've got approximately 6 months, maybe give or take. 6 months would be around 25-26 weeks, 4 weeks per month plus a couple of weeks added for the extra 2-3 days. So that means you have around 26-27 weeks. Now my first question to you will be, how many hours per week can you study, or can you devote to your preparation? And my answer, I know the answers I'll get from you to that question will be somewhere between 20 hours per week, 30 hours per week, 40 hours per week. Some of you are just sitting and preparing might even say 45-50 hours per week. I think let's first look at this timeline. So 26-27 weeks to the CAT. Take away 3 weeks, because I personally believe, and I think this will be concurrent to any other teacher you talk to, not just me, that CAT की तैयारी अगर नवंबर 2022 के लिए कर रहे हो तो नवंबर में पढ़ाई करना पड़े तो you are in crisis situation. So let's say we want to put a full stop to our CAT prep in the end of October, and the last 3 weeks is just for fine tuning or keeping the momentum maintained. It should not be towards solving any major issues in your problem solving experiences. Otherwise the horse is bolted and CAT 22 is gone for you if you are still desperately trying to inculcate skills in the last 3 weeks. So let's cut down the 26-27 weeks by 3 to make it 24 weeks approximately of preparation time that you have. And at 30 hours per week you have 720 hours of preparation. At 40 hours per week you've got around 960 hours of preparation. At 25 hours a week you've got around 600 hours of preparation. So let's talk about this band of 600 to 900 hours of preparation that you have. So let's look at chunks where this is going to go. Typically your self-study time on a chapter basis, per chapter basis, typically in maths, if you talk about maths, 20 chapters, quants 20 chapters, the self-solving time or the self-studying time that you will need, apart from your coaching attendance, etc., is going to be an average of 10 to 20 hours across 20 chapters. If you're a very good learner and you're already very good at these chapters, then maybe you need to just spend 10 hours per chapter. But if you're not so good at the chapters, at each of the chapters, or you are good at some chapters, not so good at some other chapters to start with, individual chapters might even take 20-25 hours for you to rectify your ability to solve it inside the exam. So let's say a chunk of around 300 hours will go across 20 chapters, across covering 20 chapters, just the basics. That means just doing the level of difficulty exercises and doing the basic theory aspect of it from any book or study material. So 300 out of 600 to 900 hours you have, 200 to 300 hours is going to be dependent, or is going to be a self-study time for your quants portion. Right? It can be as low as 200, but typically it will be 250 to 300 hours. And then you might also feel the need, once you start taking the test, to review, revise, go back to chapters, etc. This was portion coverage time that I was talking about, 200 to 300 hours. Review, revise, going back to individual chapters for 5 hours, going back to individual chapters for 8 hours, doing 100 more questions on a topic, covering the previous year questions, looking through the questions inside the mock tests, etc. from that topic. If you create a time bank of around, let's say, 5 hours per chapter, it's another 100 hours. So तुम्हारे 600 से 900 घंटे में 300 से 400 घंटा क्वांट्स कंज्यूम करने वाला है. Your verbal preparation, which is the second part of your preparation, is also going to be equally intensive. Of course, if your English is good, it can be as short as 100-150 hours. But if your English is not good, your verbal preparation will take you again another 200 to 300 hours. Solving and reviewing your answers and making or trying to understand what mistakes you're continuously making, etc. You start solving comprehension, you realize that you don't have more than 70% accuracy in comprehension, so you try to look at what's going wrong. You try to look inside the questions. Have you understood the passage, misunderstood the passage, misunderstood a part of the passage, misunderstood what the question is saying, or you understood everything according to what you thought, but the answer is different because what you thought was not right. What's going wrong in your English will depend how much time you require for your language preparations. But language preparation again is a bank of around 100 to 300 hours typically. Data interpretation and logical reasoning require you to go through self-study. I'm talking about around 100 to 200 sets, 200 sets each before you hit the previous year questions and the mock cats and the mock exams, etc. So 200 sets each of personal solving experience is what you need in data interpretation and logical reasoning. So on an average, if you take 20 minutes per set, 200 sets getting through 200 sets in DI and getting through 200 sets in LR will be what, 1/3 of an hour. Three sets will take you 1 hour, so 66 hours each, so 130 hours more in data and prediction and logical reasoning preparation. So your quants, your verbal and your DILR, the basic preparation is somewhere around 400 to 500 hours. Remember, you started off with a time bank of around 600 to 900 hours. Now these 500 hours you can shorten by efficiencies, you can shorten by doing things faster, you can shorten by understanding that this topic I don't need much practice and because I'm already good at it, etc. But then 500 ko tum kitna shorten karoge? 50 hours, 70 hours? So what I'm trying to tell you is that these 3 chunks, and then add the 4th chunk to it, your time taken for how many mock tests you take. So when you talk about mock tests, you're going to take, ideally the thumb rule that I tell students is that you should plan to take at least 40 full length mocks and around 10 sectional mocks on each of the sections. So effectively 50 full length mocks, where the test taking time at 2 hours per test is 100 hours, analysis time at around 3 hours per test is 150 hours. So that's another 250 hours of chunk. Now this adds up totally to 500, 600, 650 hours easily. Now if you are going to start spending your time in going to offline classes, imagine what happens. And this is something I've seen very deeply, very closely. It's been part of my blood for 25 years of my life. And at Mindworks, we're very conscious about the fact that my students' time is much more important than my own time. And sometimes I used to simply, because earlier there was no option, 10 years ago there was no option. People had to come, if they needed to learn from somebody who was experienced and somebody who was good, they had to come to an offline coaching center. But imagine somebody coming to an offline class. Now, first of all, as a teacher, I can tell you, if I'm taking an offline class and I spend 2 hours inside an offline class, my actual delivery of content is maybe 1.5 hours, which in an online class, I'll be able to deliver in 1.5 hours itself. So, तुम्हारा 2 घंटा में तुम 1.5 घंटे का content ले रहे हो, पहली बात, in an offline class. And it is not, you're not transporting yourself through a pod that you put a switch on a button and you're in the classroom and then switch off the button and you're back home. Your typical time, like we used to have our office in CP pre-COVID in Connaught Place, and for a 10 o'clock class I had students who start at 8, 8:30, 9 and come all the way to our office, and by the time 12 o'clock happened, the class is over, they have taken 1.5 hours of content. Going back home, they're hungry, stop for a snack somewhere. घर पहुँचते 2 हो जाता था. So the chunk of time used to attend a 2-hour class was 6 hours. Efficiencies can be improved in offline by saying कि नहीं तुम एक बार आओ तो मैं 2 क्लास ले लूँगा, तुम्हारे 2 घंटे के बदले 4 घंटे क्लास हो जाएगी तुम्हारी. But still, even for consuming in 4-hour offline class, the content you'll get will be around 3 hours, 3.5 hours. There's so many distractions. And I'm not even talking about the fact that in all places, in all coaching institutes, you'll not get a ideally comfortable place to sit, etc. I remember I used to teach at Vajiram and Ravi these for the CSAT, and they used to have these classrooms with 500 people, and I'm doing this on the board, and I know as a maths teacher, I know the board is the most important component of teaching mathematics, and I'm doing this on the board. The board is like this, flat behind me, and there's a student sitting there at that corner who can just hear what I'm saying and who can just try to imagine what I'm writing on the board, right? And it's simply not possible that he's learning anything in that, even the time that he's spending. So the point I'm trying to make here is that, first of all, in the kind of timeline you are, specifically for CAT 22, and this I can show you equally why even for CAT 23, it is highly unlikely that you'll be able to get any good value for the time you spend, right? I mean, if you typically go for an offline instruction course, it will be around 200-250 hours of instruction, for consuming which you'll need around 500 to 700 hours of your study time. Why the hell will you do that? And of course, the other problems, the huge advantage in online class, you have a recording of the session. In an offline course, you miss 2 classes in between because you couldn't go, something happened in your family, some marriage happened, etc., or some mishap happened, whichever way, it worked. You lost the link of 2-3 classes in between, and when you go back to the next class, you don't know what's happening because you've not done the previous ones. Here in an online course, you've got access to the complete recordings of every course, every class. So in case you have missed out anything, you can always go back to the recordings. Second is when you're watching a recording, when you're not doing a live class online, when you're watching a recording, the 1.5x and the 1.25x and the 2x buttons are on your fingertips. So you can actually consume a 1.5 hour class or 2 hour class in somewhere between 1 to 1 hour 15 minutes. So the ratio of what you're learning is going off the charts here. What you're learning in 6 hours of effort in an offline class, when you join an offline class, you are learning approximately in 1 hour of effort in an online class. And plus the advantage that you do it at your time. You want to do it at 2 o'clock in the night, it's up to you. Pick up a video, watch it at 1.25x, watch a 40-minute video in 32-minute time frame. From the pedagogy viewpoint, as a teacher, I can tell you, at Mindworks, for example, we have broken our chapters into smaller parts. So if you are doing a 2 hour class on percentage, 8 concepts are taught together. In what we have done in our course is we have broken it down into 8 videos of 10-12 minutes each. So you take one concept at a time. So pedagogy wise, also the kind of depth and the kind of structure I can provide in an online course, I simply cannot look at in an offline course, which is why my point that learning is lower in online classes and learning is not effective in online classes is a huge myth. Your neighborhood uncle will tell you that, neighborhood aunt will tell you that, your grandmother will tell you that कि हम तो class में बैठ के पढ़े हैं. But they'll tell you so many other things which are not going to be relevant for the future. And if you are going to be having a future ready career, you simply cannot lose this opportunity. Out there in the world today, you've got the opportunity. You want to study physics, Nobel laureates are teaching you physics on YouTube. Control your mind. Why will not teach your mind how to discipline yourself? That's the only aspect. The only drawback is when you're going to an offline class, you'll have a teacher who will shout at you at times, once in a while. The kind of ratios coaching institute have, वो भी नहीं होने वाला है coaching institute में. School में थोड़ा बहुत होता है school level पे, where the teacher is also taking feedback whether you're learning or not. He or she is looking at you and looking at your learning and hence able to rectify what he or she is doing. But again, that's, as I said, if you are a 10-year-old kid, 12-year-old kid, I will accept that learning in an online environment is not so effective as learning in an offline environment. You need more immersive learning at that stage. But going forward, at this stage of your life, 18, 20, 22, 24, going to become a professional in the next 2-3 years, you better get control of your mind in order to do this, in order to get your learning into shape. So that's my 2 bits. Hugely effective. बोर तंग आ गए हैं ऑनलाइन क्लास करके, अगर तुमको बाहर ही निकलना है, घर से घूम के आ जाओ ना. You're saving, as I told you, 6 hours of effort for attending an offline class. You can get the same content in 1.5 hours in an online session, or if you watch a video at your own pace, right? You can do it at your time. And on top of that, जो 4 घंटा तुम्हारा बचा, 4-4.5 घंटा बचा, go out, watch a movie and come back if you want outings. Online learning is the future of the world. And online learning, if you are not going to learn how to learn online, you are going to miss out on a huge learning experience, not just in the context of what you are doing in the next 6 months, or the next 20, 25, 30 years of your life, right? Where what other resource allows you to connect with the best trainers in the world, the best teachers in the world, the most scholarly people in the world, and learn from them, which is simply not possible in your neighborhood, right? So that was my take on this. A lot of you had been asking me for my comments on this. So maybe this has been a long video, but I hope it helped you make a better decision. Thank you so much.